The slap echoed across the parking lot, silencing the rustle of diesel pumps and desert wind. Inside the gas station's narrow mini-mart, Dax, all tattoos and bad attitude, grinned as the young clerk stumbled backward, his cheek red, a rack of chips crashing behind him. "Charge me with your face," Dax barked, turning to his two friends for approval. Laughter exploded. Bags of jerky spilled across the tiles like confetti for chaos. The clerk, barely 20, adjusted his name tag and tried to stay professional. "Sir, I'm just doing my job. The system declined your card." His voice trembled as he stood behind the counter, dwarfed by Dax's broad shoulders and leather vest. The two other bullies, leaning by the soda fridge, smirked and mocked. One cracked open a can and chugged it without paying. Outside, the air was hot and dry, the Barstow station dusty and forgotten on the edge of a wide highway. Customers near Pump 4 stood frozen. A woman clutched her purse. A trucker beside his rig pretended to scroll his phone, doing anything but get involved. Inside his dark SUV, parked at the far end near Pump 8, Jason Statham watched. Black shirt. One hand on a water bottle, the other resting on the wheel. His face unreadable, but his eyes locked sharp on Dax's reflection in the glass door. Back inside, Dax shoved the clerk again. The kid hit the jerky rack a second time, hard, sending it collapsing. An elderly man nearby flinched, visibly shaken as he clutched his walker near the drink machine. That was it. Jason slowly opened the driver's door. Every movement was efficient, controlled, silent. The bullies had no idea he was coming. As Jason approached, Dax turned, irritated by the presence. "Problem?" he asked. Jason's voice sliced the air clean. "You had a working card. You didn't use it. You're stealing." The tension cracked like pavement under pressure. Dax laughed and cracked his knuckles. "Coward," he sneered. Jason's glare locked. This fight was already over, and no one saw what was coming next. Before we proceed, like and subscribe to catch Jason Statham's epic face-off with vicious bullies, and comment where you're watching from today. The Barstow gas station sat like a forgotten outpost in the California heat, dust curling off the asphalt, pumps humming a low mechanical rhythm, and a classic rock tune bleeding from an overhead speaker that had seen better decades. The air shimmered like a warning. Sun-scorched gravel crunched beneath the weight of traffic, yet the station pulsed with a strange stillness, as if the desert knew something was about to snap. Near Pump 8, a matte black SUV idled quietly, engine off but presence unmistakable. Jason Statham sat behind the wheel, left arm relaxed on the window, wearing a plain black t-shirt, dark jeans, and that signature unreadable expression. His eyes, though, flicked, tracking movements, sensing shifts, scanning the place like a man who had never truly stopped being alert. This was just a fuel stop after a long stretch of open road, but Jason had a habit of being in the wrong place at exactly the right time. The roar came before the chaos. A Dodge Charger screeched in, tires biting pavement, suspension groaning. The car jerked to a halt beside Pump 3, inches from clipping an elderly man easing his faded silver Corolla into the next lane. The man braked hard, hands trembling on the wheel. His eyes wide behind thick lenses, unsure whether to reverse or hold still. 3 men spilled out of the Charger. Dax, the leader, wore a sleeveless vest, sunburned arms, and a smirk built for starting fights. His long hair, tied back in a sweat-slicked ponytail, framed a face that knew intimidation too well. Behind him were Vince, thick and loud, and Trey, leaner but twitchy, bouncing on his heels like a junkyard dog off-leash. All 3 looked like they had not paid for a thing in years, and didn't plan to today either. Inside the store, the clerk, barely out of high school, rang up a Gatorade for a passing trucker. The kid's shirt was slightly untucked, name badge hanging low, Marcus, overworked, underpaid, and just trying to survive the shift. Outside, the elderly man shakily stepped from his car, clutching the fuel nozzle with both hands, eyes glancing nervously toward the Charger. Back in the SUV, Jason's fingers lightly tapped his water bottle. His gaze flicked to the loose nozzle swaying by Pump 6, wind nudging it side to side like a pendulum. It would not be long before that swing turned into a slam. And the slam would not come from the wind. Inside the gas station, tension snapped like a matchstick. Dax slammed his open palm against the card reader. "This junk machine's broken," he barked. The credit card he had no intention of paying with blinked, declined, for the third time. "Swipe it again," he ordered, tossing it onto the counter like trash. When the timid clerk hesitated, Dax backhanded the jerky rack, sending bags of peppered beef and teriyaki strips crashing to the floor. Vince and Trey cackled behind him, watching the young clerk flinch. "System's fine," Marcus mumbled, eyes darting toward the security camera, hands shaking. "It says your cards. The system's lying." Dax snarled, cutting him off. "Want me to teach it manners?" He leaned over the counter, breath sour, finger jabbing. "Charge me with your face. How about that?" Out at Pump 6, Jason stepped out of his SUV, water bottle in hand, eyes locked on the scene. His movements were unhurried, calm with an edge of calculation, like a storm checking its own pressure. The sun reflected off his black tee, face half-shadowed by the visor of his cap. His posture wasn't aggressive, just ready. Dax shoved the card into Marcus's chest, snarling. "Maybe I'll just take the gas. Who's gonna stop me, you?" He turned to leave, shoulder smashing into the gum display on the way out. That was when Jason's voice came. "Pay for the fuel." Quiet. Flat. Like a gun being cocked off-screen. Dax paused, steps slowing mid-stride, then turned. "Who said that?" Jason stood at the entrance, arms relaxed, gaze unblinking. "You filled your tank. Pay up." Vince let out a low whistle. "Looks like someone's got a Hollywood death wish." Trey laughed. "You got a cape under that shirt, tough guy?" Dax squinted at Jason. "Hold up. I know you." Jason didn't blink. "You should focus on the clerk." Dax scoffed. "What, you broke or bored? Or just stupid?" Then, without warning, he shoved Marcus again. The young clerk stumbled into the counter, knocking over a bin of lighters. Behind them, the elderly man jumped at the sound, nearly dropping his gas cap. Jason's head turned slightly, eyes narrowing. Jason took a step forward. "Last warning." Dax sneered and jabbed Jason in the chest, hard. It rocked Jason a half step back. The smile faded from his face. He reset his footing. Now his eyes were hard, cold. And every step Dax took next was toward something he would not walk back from. The desert heat felt thicker now, humming off the cracked pavement of the Barstow gas station lot. Dax smirked wide, circling Jason with a swagger only fools wore. "What's the matter?" he barked. "You gonna blog about this? Or run to your little podcast?" Behind him, Trey and Vince snorted, mimicking Jason's calm posture like children mocking their teacher. Jason said nothing. But Dax was not done. He lunged fast, a wild fist whipped toward Jason's jaw. Jason dipped under it effortlessly, feet gliding back with calculated calm. Dax stumbled a half step past him, turning to recover. His own momentum had betrayed him. From behind the counter, the clerk flinched hard, shielding his head. The elderly man near Pump 4 nearly dropped his change as the noise burst across the lot. A pair of teenagers near the soda machines froze mid-step, eyes wide. One whispered, "Who is that guy?" The other just shook his head slowly. "He's not backing down." Jason adjusted his footing again. Still no fists. Just laser focus and the kind of quiet confidence you cannot fake. Trey yelled from the charger, "Yo, Dax. You good?" But Jason's eyes weren't on Dax. They briefly scanned the lot, the clerk trembling, the elderly man still frozen by the pump, the onlookers trying not to breathe too loud. Jason saw it all. Then he turned back, locked eyes with a man who had just tried to take his head off. And something changed. He stepped forward. No hesitation now. No peace offering left. Dax's grin flickered. Jason's voice cut through the heat. "You do not swing at people you cannot hit." The lot, already tense, leaned into the moment. From behind a truck, a bystander whispered, "I think that's Jason Statham." A woman near the windshield wash bucket stared. "No way. That's him. Look at the stance. Look at the eyes." Dax heard it too. His bravado cracked slightly, lips curling in something less like confidence and more like defense. He raised both fists now. What, you think you're scary? You think you're gonna stop us? Jason tilted his head. No. I'm going to end this. A ripple moved through the lot like an incoming wave, a mix of fear, awe, and rising justice. Jason's feet shifted again, this time for impact. Dax's mouth opened, another insult cocked and loaded. But the crowd had already chosen a side. They leaned in. Phones were up. And justice was about to land. Dax swung hard, sloppy and loud. Jason caught his wrist midair, twisted it, crack, then slammed a gas nozzle across his forearm. Dax howled, dropping to one knee. Two goons rushed. Jason spun. The first crashed into the open hood of their Charger. Metal crunched. The second lunged from the side. Jason sidestepped and smashed his face into the trash bin. The guy dropped, nose bloodied. Dax scrambled up, yanking a windshield squeegee and swinging wildly. Jason blocked it effortlessly. You think you're tough? Dax spat. Jason, I don't think. I know. The crowd watched, frozen. Phones up. Whispers rising. Jason jabbed Dax in the liver. He folded instantly. One brutal knee to the ribs dropped him flat. One last goon charged with a tire iron. Jason intercepted, grabbed his arm mid-swing, and flipped him hard, crack, straight onto the concrete curb. He did not get up. Jason stepped over the wreckage, calm, composed. He grabbed Dax by the neck, lifted him up, and growled. You owe him. He nodded toward the shaking gas clerk. Dax hesitated. Jason's grip tightened. I'm sorry, Dax mumbled. Jason. Louder. I'm sorry. Jason dropped him. Dax collapsed, winded and broken. Sirens flared. Squad cars pulled in. A cop stepped out, stunned. Wait. Is that Jason Statham? Jason nodded. They were stealing. It's handled. The clerk stepped forward, voice shaking. He saved me. Dax and his crew were cuffed without a word. Jason walked back to his SUV. As he opened the door, he spotted the elderly man near Pump 1, nodding respectfully. Jason returned the nod, climbed in, and drove off. No pride. No speeches. Just justice served. And the entire lot knew. Jason Statham does not flex. He finishes. Dax groaned, face pressed against the concrete, his cheek red with shame and skin scraped. Cuffed, arms behind his back, he muttered apologies, loud enough for everyone to hear. His voice cracked. No swagger left. His crew sat slumped beside him, bruised, humiliated, and dead silent. The crowd that once froze in fear now murmured in disbelief. Charge the tank, Jason said calmly, eyes on the nearest cop. The officer nodded. We will. Jason turned to the gas clerk, still clutching his chest, visibly shaken. You good? Jason asked. The kid nodded, eyes wide. Thanks, sir. I didn't think anyone would actually step in. Jason gave a small, respectful nod. Keep doing your job. You did the right thing. The elderly man, now standing at a safe distance, adjusted his glasses. He had not moved during the whole fight, but now he stepped forward. That was incredible, he said softly. Jason looked at him and offered a rare half-smile. Some people push too far. The elderly man looked at the clerk. You've got more backbone than most boys your age. And him, he looked at Jason, he's the kind you remember forever. From across the lot, a few drivers clapped. Then more joined in. Soon, the gas station buzzed with applause, not wild or theatrical, just real. Jason made his way back to his SUV. Before he stepped in, he turned to the manager, who had just arrived and was piecing together the aftermath. Get him a raise, Jason said, nodding toward the clerk. Then, without another word, he opened the door, started the engine, and pulled out onto the sunlit Barstow road, disappearing just as quickly as he had arrived. Behind him, The cops loaded the broken bullies into the back of the cruiser. The clerk watched Jason go, eyes wide, hands still trembling, but with a new kind of strength in his posture. The message was clear. Justice does not shout. It shows up, steps in, and walks away. Dax sat silent in the back of the cruiser, bruised, handcuffed, and unrecognizable from the man who swaggered into the gas station moments ago. His arrogance? Gone. Replaced by raw humiliation. The clerk, still shaken, stood taller. He had faced down a storm and watched justice walk through it. Footage hit social media before the dust settled. Within hours. Viral. Comments flooded in, "That's how you handle thugs." Statham doesn't play hero. He is one. One quiet stand turned a random gas stop into a legend. Final line. Real strength stops bullies. Statham proved it.